And we would like to test the mic in the hearing room. Commissioner Partridge.
Looks like they're just getting situated, Troy.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little thing I can't see very well. Let me close this.
I know you did celebrate a birthday, but I don't think your eyesight.
My screen isn't quite as big as the hearing room. For those that are joining us and listening in, to get the best experience from your WebEx hearing or business meeting, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen are little white buttons. Please choose the button that looks like a TV with 3 buttons below it. That way you'll be able to see the hearing room and the active speakers. Commissioner Layden, I'd like to check your microphone, please.
Sure. Hello, Troy. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank
One,
you.
2, 3. You bet.
Commissioner Partridge, could we please check your microphone?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. That sounds good. Commissioner Thomas?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Excellent. Thank you. We are live and recording.
Thank you, Ms. Dunning. And I'm going to just check, and do we have Commissioner Layden on the phone?
Yes, sir, we do.
We do. Hello, Mr. Chair.
And I know we have County Manager DeBoard on the phone also. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 Board of County Commissioners Business Meeting. Would you please stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Thank you, everyone. We do have a quorum for our meeting today. All commissioners are in attendance either physically or on the phone. Mr. Ingalls, do we have certification of our agenda today?
Yes, Mr. Chair. My office has reviewed all items on today's agenda, and they all meet legal approval. On item 3, consent, M, as in Mike, has been pulled and does not need to be heard.
Thank you, sir. Very well. And do any of the commissioners have any disclosures for any item on our agenda today?
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I have none. That brings us to our first order of business regarding citizens' comments, organization comments. If there's anyone in the audience physically or on the phone that would like to address the board regarding any item that is not on the agenda, would you please either raise your hand or please come forward to the lectern? Seeing no one come forward in the room, I will ask Ms. Dunning, are there any hands raised?
Commissioner, I see no hands raised.
And I will ask Attorney Ingalls or Recording Secretary Kristen if we have received any email requests for public comment. Okay, we have not. We'll move on to item number 3, our consent agenda. Is there anyone in the audience or that would like to address the board regarding any item on the consent agenda? No one coming forward in the room? And I'll ask Ms. Dunning, any hands raised on the phone?
No, sir, Commissioner, no hands raised.
And I gather we have not received any email notification either. Shaking no of the head. So I will bring it back to the board for any discussion, polling, or a motion regarding our consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to approve the requests in all items A through L and N through O of the consent agenda. Item M has been pulled.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor state aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. Consent agenda has passed. Moves us on to item number 4 of our regular agenda. Item A is a resolution rescinding resolution number R-09-131 authorizing the Colorado New Energy Improvement District to conduct the CPACE program in Douglas County. Presenting County Manager Doug DeBoard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item was continued from our last business meeting. And as the board well knows, this resolution in front of you would rescind an action taken back in November of 2019 and would effectively have Douglas County withdraw from the inclusion of the CPACE program at this time. So I believe we were continued last time due to some additional information, and Commissioner Partridge probably would lead the discussion.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. DeBoard. I will ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to address the board regarding item A on our agenda, the resolution rescinding the resolution. In the audience, we have.
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
I'm first going to address in the audience, we have our treasurer, Mr. David Gill, would like to address. Excuse me, Treasurer Gill, I don't think we got, now it's working. Would you mind just stating your name and starting over again? Thank you, sir.
David Gill, Douglas County Treasurer. Commercial loans have shorter terms to limit risk, but they still do go into default. During the S&L crisis, many of the loans that defaulted, that brought down the S&Ls, were their commercial loans. The Colorado New Energy Improvement District memo to Colorado counties and CPACE stakeholders dated June 8, 2020, on page 3 states, and I quote, "The cash flow generated by the property during the past 12 months exceeds 1.25 times the sum of the amount of the annual assessment plus any interest expenses associated with any mortgage debt for the past 12 months. They appear to be talking about debt service coverage ratio. A DSCR should be 1.25%, and it should be considered a minimum. But the formula they state is not the proper formula. It should be the formula for calculating a DSCR is net operating income divided by total debt service. But the definition of net operating income, they've left out taxes, insurance, debt amortization, reserves for replacement, and other normal expenses that need to be subtracted from the gross income in order to calculate the NOI, the net operating income. In other words, the underwriting guidelines that they talk of in their June 8th memo leave out significant expenses, are inadequate, and could result in loans that are likely to go into default. The Fremont County CPACE loan default points to a significant weakness for the counties in the CPACE loan program. Normally, when taxes aren't paid, we notify the property owner. On or about July 1st, we send out delinquency notices. And if the taxes still aren't paid in the fall, end of October, first week of November, we'll hold a tax lien sale. In the case of the Fremont County lien sale, they received no bids on their CPACE loan that went into default. If there is a proper disclosure made to the investor, there probably won't be any bids, because they not only have to pay the back taxes, but also the back mortgage payments. The result is a much greater expense to them. And as Fremont found, much to their dismay, there were no bidders, and Fremont is stuck with that property now. There is no indication, last I'd heard, when and if they would receive their money. That same thing could happen here. The Fremont County recounting of their loan in the June 7th note from Grant Nelson is a little confusing. It states it's in Florissant, Teller County. It wasn't. It's in Fremont County, unless there's been another foreclosure or another tax sale that I'm not aware of. Apart from the county and its taxing authorities not being adequately protected from harm from a CPACE loan default, there are other reasons to avoid not having CPACE loans in Douglas County. If it were a reasonable loan, the lender wouldn't need the added incentive of having the government use its powers to attempt to collect the debt in order to make the loan. They'd just make the loan and not pay an extra % to the county. It isn't the proper role of government to use governmental authority to function as a bill collector between two businesses. And let's be frank, the power that the county has, that government entities have, in collecting their taxes is a very powerful tool. If you don't pay your taxes, you're not going to own the property for long, and we will get our money from an investor in the meantime. I would say that this is not proper that we use that type of power in a private commercial loan situation. It's not the proper role of government. The loans can be used to upgrade property, but the loans can have a longer term than the useful life of the upgrades financed. There's a reason why you can't get a 25-year loan to purchase a car. A sophisticated commercial property owner would also maintain reserves for replacement to update the property and not be borrowing to pay for replacements. And in their discussion of it, one of their main issues is it allows a property owner to update and replace things in their property. That ought to be handled by reserves for replacement. Not having reserves adequate is a red flag for any lender, and probably a good reason why many loans are denied. CPACE commercial loans are the fraternal twins of RPACE loans. RPACE loans have similar characteristics as CPACE loans and have a documented high rate of foreclosures. Currently, there was that default of CPACE loan in Fremont County. Predictably, no investor bid on the tax lien, and Fremont is still stuck. Last, you would be signing a blank check to involve Douglas County in any loan that CPACE and a lender decide to make without having the ability to look at the loan and see if it either made sense or would benefit the county. I therefore urge you not to involve Douglas County in the CPACE program and to pass this order to rescind. Thank you very much. I know I was talking a little quickly through some of this, so I did prepare some notes to give you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Treasurer Gill. Treasurer Gill has handed some exhibits to Attorney Ingalls.
I will label this Exhibit 1 for today's business meeting.
Will we have the capability to provide that exhibit to Commissioner Layden?
The only way we can do that is to take a picture of it and send it as an email. I do understand from Treasurer Gill that this is a summary of the comments he just made, so we can leave that to Commissioner Layden if he wants to receive it, but we can get it to him by email.
Commissioner Layden, are you on the phone?
I am, and thank you, Treasurer Gill, for those comments. I heard those. I'm happy to receive them by email, but I certainly heard them and understand what you had to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. This time, is there anyone in our physical audience, anyone else who would like to address the board regarding item 4A? Seeing no one, I believe we heard on the phone. Do we have anybody on the phone who would like to address the board regarding item 4A?
Hello, Commissioner Partridge. This is Troy for staff. I have someone that would like to make a public comment, but I am not sure which item. I could go ahead and unmute him. Hopefully it is this one, or I can find out and we can come back to him.
Let's go ahead and have them address, and if it's not this item, I'll provide a correction.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have someone on the phone?
Yes, sir. I'm going to be unmuting Grant Nelson. Grant,
Hello.
you are unmuted.
Hello,
Go ahead,
Mr.
sir.
Hello, Mr. Nelson. If you would state your name, the spelling of your last name, and your address for the record, please.
Sure, Commissioner Partridge. This is Grant Nelson, 731 Norwich Court, Castle Pines, Colorado, 80108.
And feel free to proceed.
Okay, just want to make sure you got that. I appreciate you guys taking the time to, again, listen to the CPACE conversation. We are, as you know, I have a company that sources CPACE loans, and we've completed 15 transactions in Colorado, the majority of which are retrofits of existing buildings. The Treasurer Gill made a number of comments that I would like to address if possible. One is we do not have our PACE in Colorado. Residential PACE has not been approved in Colorado, and though it is a sister of CPACE, it's a wholly different entity and animal. There's been about 8 billion of that done throughout the country, and there have been some defaults. But as far as CPACE is concerned, as I've communicated previously, there's been about 1.5 billion of it done. And each year there's more and more CPACE done. The comments regarding debt service coverage ratios and reserves, some of the largest banks and property owners in the world are utilizing CPACE. They're highly sophisticated owners like MetLife, banks like JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, the largest banks in the world of all. Most of them have all given a consent to CPACE, and a number of the local banks here are lending CPACE dollars out. So I would say the sophistication level of the average CPACE investor is both the lender, the owner, and the borrower are pretty high, and the risk of a CPACE done deal that is well capitalized, that is underwritten properly, and is lent properly, poses almost no risk to the county. So I know you have listened to a lot of my ramblings, Commissioner Partridge, so I appreciate you indulging me to listen again. But again, I think this is a tool that Douglas County needs. I think in the current economic climate, commercial real estate is going to be hard pressed to find capital to do projects, and taking a tool out of the tool belt of property owners and developers in Douglas County at this time is going to be hard on Douglas County and provide opportunities for other counties to compete for projects, and we won't be able to compete for them without this tool in our tool belt. So I won't take up the rest of the afternoon, but I appreciate you listening to.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. And Troy, do we have any other raised hands?
Yes, sir. I have a Mr. David DiCarlo. I will unmute him momentarily.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. DiCarlo. You are live.
And Mr. DiCarlo?
Thank you. David DiCarlo.
And Mr. DiCarlo, if
Sorry,
you
go
would, maybe you're doing that, spelling your last name and provide your address for the record, please.
Yes. David DiCarlo, DiCarlo, 5660 Wickerdale Lane, Highlands Ranch, Colorado.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I don't think I could put it anywhere near as eloquently as Treasurer Gill did. So I guess I'll just say, when I first read this, the question I asked myself is this the role of government? We, every few years, have folks run for commissioner, and they come out and talk to groups that I'm at, and they use words like constitutionally conservative principles, and then something like this comes along that benefits business, and it does so at the potential cost of the taxpayer. And it was just mentioned in the current economic climate. Yes, in the current economic climate, let's not grow government, even potentially grow government. The return on investment to the citizen taxpayer, which in my mind is all any of this is about. Business exists to serve the citizen. The citizen does not serve to benefit business. This isn't the role of government. And quite frankly, a yes vote in my mind is nothing more than saying, I want my legacy, I want my name, I want my what I stand for as a commissioner to be based on the growth of government, not the reining in and control of government. We're too big already. And the concerns that Commissioner Gill has expressed, when I look at this, I'm sorry, Treasurer Gill, that he's expressed, when I look at this, the only thing I can say is we're serving a special interest. The only special interest should be served is the interest of the people. And sometimes that takes a bold vote, not one based on a graph of poll data or manipulated numbers. I don't think many people in Douglas County want to see the budget grow even potentially. I'd like to see the commissioners resoundingly turn this down and reverse their November vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlo. And Ms. Dunning, do we have any other hands raised?
Yes, sir, we do. We have one more call-in. That will be Tracy Phillips, and I will unmute her momentarily. Okay, Tracy, you are live. Go ahead.
And it's actually Mr. Tracy Phillips,
but
I get that all the time.
My apologies. I understand my name is Troy.
Exactly.
And Mr. Phillips, if you would state your name and the spelling of your last name and your address for the record, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. My name's Tracy Phillips. It's Phillips. And my address is 2455 Windrow Lane in Lafayette.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I won't take up too much of your time. I do want to say again, I appreciate you all considering the CPACE financing and becoming a participate in the program. The two things I wanted to mention to address the theme that I've heard a couple times now about government and this public-private partnerships. I do want to point out, public-private partnerships happen all the time, and that relationship between the public and the government can be very powerful and do things that you couldn't otherwise do. The assessment that is really the foundation of one of the mechanism that makes CPACE effective for a number of different reasons is critical, and that does involve the county. The fact is, in terms of bigger government and those concerns, they're real concerns. But when it comes to CPACE, the county's obligation, once they are a participant in the program, is to place assessments on properties as these projects are financed, and then remit the payments, the CPACE payments, to the program when they come in. When I've talked to treasurers that are participating in the 69 projects that have been financed in the state, this usually takes about 15 minutes of their time a year. So it is a small ask, but it is asking the treasurers to do something they don't normally do. And I want to point out that the county does receive a fee. 1% of that annual payment goes to the county in the form of a fee to help sort of cover those extra administrative efforts. So, and those fees to date have added up across the 69 projects to about $1 million going to the different participating counties. So the counties do get recognized and compensated for this. The public, the program is completely privately financed and funded. So there's no taxpayer dollars of any kind ever going to finance the program or these projects. So the concern about, this relationship, I think there's very little being asked of the county except that they're in a position to really assist with the assessment placement and the remittance of those payments. The other thing I want to say quickly is on the Fremont County project. I know has gotten a lot of publicity. Of the projects that have happened in the last decade across the country, there's been over 2,400 of them financed, and there's only been 2 recorded cases of default. One of them happened to be in Colorado, so of course there's particular attention being played there. The fact is that the program, the district, and the lender and the county and the developer are all working together to find a solution to that scenario. So it is still in progress, and we are moving forward towards getting that resolved and something that will hopefully be positive for everyone involved. But at no time is the county liable for any of the payments past due or going to be owed in the future. So the county really bears only the responsibility to be a part of the solution and not have any financial obligation or anything at risk on that front. So I just wanted to make those 2 points. I appreciate you guys listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Joy, any other hands raised?
I see no other hands raised, sir.
And is anyone aware of any email correspondence we received regarding item 4A? Attorney Eagles and Recording Secretary Kristen shaking their heads no. We have no further public testimony. I will close public testimony and bring it back to the board for discussion. Commissioner Layden?
Sure. I was waiting to see if Commissioner Thomas wanted to go first, but I'm happy to proceed.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this particular resolution to rescind. Certainly appreciate Treasurer Gill, the comments made by Mr. DiCarlo, Mr. Nelson, and Mr. Phillips with regard to what CPACE is. I want to step back and say that this was initially proposed in Colorado by a conservative Republican by the name of Mark Shuffle, senator from Douglas County, that eventually got CPACE passed into law under 3220-101 at SEC. And one of the concerns that I have, if not many, is the fact that we have had 15 meetings plus on this particular issue, and we've heard it stated on the record multiple times by our legal counsel that there is no risk to the county whatsoever in taking on this particular program. We heard that it's about 15 minutes per year for the treasurer's office. I don't consider 15 minutes per year growing government, especially when the county receives a 1% return back on these CPACE loans. I think it's really important to identify again that, out of 2,400 CPACE projects that have been completed, only 2 have gone into default, which is a 99.999% success rate, which is an A+++ in anybody's book. So I'm concerned with the raising of the Fremont County example as a parade of horribles, when in fact it's one of only 2 examples throughout the entire country. I think it's also important to note that even if a CPACE loan goes into default, the county is not liable. Again, I think it's important to specifically reference what we've heard many times with regard to what is the risk to the county. And in the 15 meetings we've had, we've heard a lot about what happens if the county is holding the bag. And that's just an improper phrase, because any failure to make a payment on a CPACE assessment is going to give rise to the same consequences as a failure to pay ad valorem property taxes, which would mean a penalty, interest, and fees, as well as a tax sale to recover the amounts owed. So I'm going to provide 3 different scenarios of default and explain exactly what happens in those cases of default. So scenario 1, a property owner fails to pay a special assessment when due. So if that happens, the county is required to advertise and sell the assessment lien defaulted upon for the payment of the whole unpaid installment as pursuant to Title 32. A treasurer's deed can be issued at any time after the 3 years from the date of the issuance of certificate of purchase. So a smart, sophisticated commercial investor, again, these are commercial properties, not residential. Smart commercial investor would go in and buy those delinquent taxes and acquire that treasurer's deed. And again, a tax lien sale or issuance of a treasurer's deed would not wipe out the district's special assessment lien. That lien would continue to run with the land until it's paid in full. So that's the same with any tax lien. And, to suggest that the county doesn't already do this, we had somebody testify from a metro district. Metro districts collect taxes much greater than this all the time that the county is responsible for. We see this with TIF, which is much more onerous. So, scenario 2 would be a mortgage holder that initiates foreclosure proceedings. So if a foreclosure did arise, the county's role in the public trustee foreclosure process remains exactly the same. So once a lender has acquired title to the property through foreclosure, the lender, and there are 100 lenders that have all signed on to this program, the most sophisticated banks in the entire country, they're required to pay that CPACE assessment that accrues from and after the date of acquisition of the subject property. So again, in that process, the county is not required to pay anything, is not left holding the bag, quote unquote. And in scenario 3, even if the project is not completed, so the district standard assessment and financing agreement has language that if there's an event of default during the construction period, then the AFA may be deemed a consensual lien granted by the property owner to secure the CPACE financing, which then can be foreclosed as a mortgage lien in Colorado. So I say all this to share that over the course of 15 meetings, this conversation around county obligation just is not met with any sort of merit on any level, both practical or legal. And after those 15 meetings, I've yet to hear a clearly articulated argument as to why we would not do this. 30 counties in Colorado have adopted it. 16 are in discussion. Only 2 in the entire state are not participating. Again, I think this was raised in public comment that there is an economic crisis right now, and I think it would be unwise to not approve CPACE in normal circumstances. But when businesses are failing, when the economy is failing, I think it is absolutely critical that the county engage in active discussions with the community where there is no risk to the county. Again, we know that from the projects in Colorado, the 67 projects completed, that's 66 million in loans, and those projects created 668 jobs. So if we really care about the citizens that we represent and getting them back to work and improving the economy, why not approve an incentive program that has no liability to the county, creates jobs, and generates 1% back to the county for 15 minutes of work? And with that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Layton. Commissioner Thomas, would you like any offer any discussion, comments?
I will. Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Layton. When the board first approved the first step for CPACE, I was a no vote. And I continue to be a no vote because this is growing government. I think that this puts a government entity smack dab in the middle between 2 private entities that are creating a commercial contract. So it does involve government where government doesn't belong. But let me talk about what Douglas County has done to encourage business so that businesses come here. And I believe we are successful in building a great economic foundation here because there are many Fortune 500 companies who have based their operations here in Douglas County. We have the lowest business personal property tax in the state, is my understanding. The state exempts the first $7,200 of equipment. In Douglas County, we exempt the first $100,000. We believe in collecting less taxes because if businesses can keep their tax money, then they can be more successful by spending their own revenue. I've done a little bit of research into how this bill got passed, and we keep hearing it was a conservative senator. What I have learned is that Dickie Lee Hollinghorse was the Speaker of the House. She was a Democrat, and her husband, Bob, who was the treasurer in Boulder County, originally wrote the bill. So I think we need to make sure we're clear on where this started from. Weld County had gotten into CPACE, and they recently got out of CPACE. And I think that Weld County is a conservative county, much like Douglas County is. El Paso County also is a very conservative county, and they are not in CPACE. So I am very happy to be in the company of Weld and El Paso counties in this discussion for Douglas County to not become a party to the CPACE legislation. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I turn it back over to you with the information that I will be voting yes to get Douglas County out of CPACE. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. So I think our legal department and the other commissioners may fall asleep if I give a little bit of history of this, because I've heard, they said, Commissioner Partridge, you bring this up one more time, we're going to stay home and clean our garage again. So I think we've reached what I call this CPACE fatigue on this. But I've done that for the reasons that I firmly believe in what we can do to help business survive in Douglas County, to give all of the residents a chance for a job, everything we can do as government. We are taking that responsibility to create the best environment for business to succeed, not to create jobs, but to create that environment. So I really believe and looked at CPACE, have looked at it over and over again. I've certainly seen and heard a lot of the benefits. I've certainly seen and heard a lot of the challenges. So I raised that question through all of this in probably well over a year. Certainly meeting with Assessor Lisa Brazel, Treasurer David Gill, and really have picked their brains and asked for their analysis on this. And certainly asked our legal department, and we've talked with other commissioners around the state, other programs around the state. So certainly understand it. I understand it also from personal side, being in business myself for years, having commercial loans, construction loan. I understand the risk that is taken and what's involved in the loan process and creating jobs, no doubt. But I could say the underwriter in me, I am not an underwriter, but looking at it from an underwriter view, it is I really believe, fiduciary responsibility as a commissioner to analyze fully what is the risk to the taxpayer at this. We know there's risk in a lot of things we do as commissioners, and we take calculated risk with decisions we make. That's the position we're in. But I also know that when we have a risk that's brought to us that is very evident, I think it's our job too to minimize that risk. So working through this through the months, I had approached the CPACE organizer, NEED, the New Energy Improvement District, and gave them the criteria that I would consider. One was that any property be considered under CPACE could not be at present or in the future in a TIF, a tax increment financing, either through a URA, DDA. That was somewhat honored. And that was not somewhat, it was honored, because I believe that's another entity, taxing entity that removes funds from one taxing district and gives to another. And so I'm not in agreement with those under very particular circumstances. There could be cases that occurred. The other issue that I brought to forward was the property taxes. And I raised this issue last year before the Fremont County case, that what if the loan would go in default, it goes to a tax lien sale, and it is not purchased? I was assured by need that would not happen. Unfortunately, it did happen. I was assured by verbal communication that it would not happen. Now I'm seeking, and I had asked for this before, seeking that there be assurances that the property taxes would be paid annual, whether the loan would go under default or not. State statute does not allow property taxes and a lien on the loan to be separated at the tax sale. I understand that. But what I've asked is that there be a surety bond to assure that taxes, the property taxes due to the residents of Douglas County would be paid annually regardless. I'm not saying to separate the taxes and the lien, but it would be assuring that property taxes would be paid. I've given simple solutions to that, and that has not been done. Our legal department has spent numerous hours trying to work with need. That has not been done. We heard this 2 weeks ago, agreed to continue it today, and in that time, I was hoping something could be worked out. Nothing's been worked out so far. So at this time, I really look at this, no doubt, there's a lot of benefits to this program. And believe me, I've heard that over and over again, the benefits. So what I'm saying, those of you who realize the benefits, it's time to tell the need board of the benefits, and if you really believe that, the need board should give those two safety clauses in there, no TIF and a surety bond. So simply, I don't need to hear the benefits again. I think needs to hear the benefits and see if it is feasible for them to honor that. If not, then we stand where we are today. So today, I am a yes vote to rescind this. If need is able to come back and give some assurances of those things I ask, I will reconsider a resolution at another date. But at this time, I see no reason that if it's a program that is good enough for an applicant, it should be good enough for the residents of Douglas County. Are there any other further commissioner comments?
I have none, thank you.
And I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to approve a resolution rescinding resolution number R019-131, authorizing the Colorado New Energy Improvement District to conduct the CPACE program in Douglas County.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed state nay.
Nay.
The motion passes 2-1. That brings us to our next item on our agenda. Item 4B is an award of professional services contract to Moeller Engineering Company for design services for Douglas County project number TF 2020-023, CDOT HRRR Prairie Park Curves project, not to exceed the amount of $219,720. Presenting for staff, Daniel Roberts.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Dan Roberts, Project Engineer with Public Works Engineering in Douglas County. I am presenting an award of a professional services contract to Moeller Engineering Company for design services for Douglas County project number TF 2020-023, the CDOT High Risk Regional Roads, or HRRR, Prairie Park Curves project in the amount of $219,720. This is a project from our traffic engineering group. The project consists of construction of safety improvements, including the addition of 4-foot wide shoulders, cable barrier, and guardrail along a portion of Prairie Park Road beginning about 1/2 mile north of Red Rock Drive and extending north from that point through the curvy section of Prairie Park Road, which is about 4,000 feet. A study completed by Diaxis Road Safety Analytics found in a 5-year period that there were 10 crashes in this section of roadway. 6 of those, or 6 injuries occurred as part of those 10 crashes, and there was 1 fatality. And the study recommended that improvements be done to reduce the severity of the crashes in that area. The county applied for and received a grant funding construction only of the project from the CDOT Highway Safety Improvement Program High Risk Rural Roads Fund. So the county was awarded a $500,000 grant, which includes a 10% local match. This item was approved by the board last year on February 26, 2019. So just reiterate that grant is for construction only. The contract I'm presenting today is to fund the design of the project and other ancillary work. The consultant for this contract as a preferred vendor was selected by our previous traffic engineering and traffic operations manager, Dwayne Clear. He selected them based on their traffic engineering experience, their traffic safety expertise, and the familiarity with this project. Initial scoping with CDOT and Mueller was completed in May of 2019. The total professional services contract amount is $291,720. That scope includes survey, design, and construction management support. Work is expected to be bid in January 2021 and should be completed within a couple months after the start. We are requesting that the board approve professional services contract to Mueller Engineering Company for design services for Douglas County project number TF 2020-023, the CDOT HRRR Perry Park Curves project in the amount of $219,720. That concludes a brief summary of the project. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Dan. Dan, I just want to clarify could you repeat the total cost of the project for me, please?
So the design grant is for $500,000. $450,000 of that will come from CDOT, and then the local match of $50,000 from Douglas County. If we add to that this design contract with Mueller, it brings that cost up to roughly $791,000. The original estimate was probably a little bit low, so the project may cost a little bit more for construction than was estimated, but I think ballpark $1 million total for the project. And when you look at the benefit cost ratio of $1 million, it sounds like a lot of money, but the fact that there were 10 accidents in the study period and 1 fatality, this is really a good investment for the county to make.
Thank you, Dan. Questions for staff?
So you probably saw the Commissioner Partridge and I trying to figure out on our agenda, it says this is for $219,720. So can you help us figure that out? I'm sorry, we weren't being rude. We were trying to figure out what you were talking about.
So let me look at the actual contract. Clearly we have a typo. It's $219,720, so my notes were wrong.
Commissioner
Partridge. A better deal.
Well, Commissioner Partridge is the one who caught it, so he was whispering to me and we were trying to figure it out. So thank you for clarifying that, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Commissioner Layden, any questions for Dan?
And I have no questions.
Dan, thank you for bringing us forward. It's certainly, we get the text from our sheriff's office often, and it's way too many times we get it that it's down on Highway 105, Perry Park Road. So thank you for bringing this forward. And if I'm correct, I believe a lot of these accidents, well, I don't say a lot of them, too many of them have been involving motorcycles. I don't know why, but it might be because of the curves. Can you just speak to a little bit of that?
So challenge with motorcycle accidents is somebody, and Commissioner Thomas knows this well, a motorcyclist that leaves their bike that hits any kind of obstruction is going to get seriously injured or killed. We're actually proposing putting in cable barriers and guardrails through this section. So it seems like the risk might be higher for a motorcyclist, but the risk already exists. And we know from the studies that we did that the benefit outweighs any risk of adding that for the motorcyclists through this section. So it's definitely a challenge on a rural roadway that's curvy to provide protection without buying massive right-of-way so we can make very flat shoulders for motorcyclists if they leave the roadway. So the best thing we can do really is try and slow that traffic down through that curved section to protect the motorcyclists.
Very well. And I've heard it explained that whether you're in a vehicle or a motorcycle, just having that visual cue in front of you of a cable or a guardrail will give you the idea that's not to be used as a bumper, but as a warning that this is a tough curve.
So. And the widening of the shoulders will help with that to some extent. We're going to add 4-foot shoulders on each side of a roadway that's only 24 foot wide, so it does widen the road section quite a bit.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
You know, I'm just going to piggyback on some comments that Dan brought up. You're probably referring to, I was a state trooper in that area for 7 years. And we knew well that when we got a call of a crash down by Red Rock Drive, it was probably in the curves north of there. And I remember taking my patrol car there one time, running hot to another accident. It scared me. So those roads are designed in a way right there that these improvements, I think, will be a good resolution for our citizens there.
Thank you. No further questions this time, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
This time, I'll open to our listening audience and our present audience. Is there anyone who would like to address the board regarding item 4B on our agenda? Seeing no one in the room. Ms. Dunning, do we have any hands raised?
I see no hands raised.
And I do not believe we received any email request. And heads are not shaking no, so I will close public comment, bring it back to the board for any further discussion, questions, and or motion.
Not hearing any further discussion, I would just reiterate a thanks for the presentation and the fantastic traffic solution, and would make a motion to approve an award of a professional services contract to Mueller Engineering Company for design services for Douglas County project number TF 2020-023 C.HRRR Perry Park Curves project, not to exceed the amount of $219,720.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, state aye.
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 Aye, and the motion passes. Thank you, Dan, for bringing that forward. Appreciate it. Our next item on the agenda, 4C, 2021 to 2022 Denver Regional Council of Governments 5310 and Human Service Transportation Mobility Management Application. And do we have Rand Clark for staff on the phone?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rand Clark representing the Department of Community Development. The request before you today is approval of the 2021-2022 DRCOG 5310 and Human Service Transportation, or HST, Mobility Management Application in the amount of $1,170,468. The total application request includes $216,524 to support mobility management activities and $719,850 to provide coordinated services and support the first call call center operations. Mobility management activities include leadership and support to Douglas County Transit Solutions, the county's local coordinating council, and participation with regional partners on mobility planning efforts. Additional staff resources will provide oversight and coordination of the sub-grantee partners who will be delivering the direct services. Mobility management funds will be used to offset the cost of staff time associated with this project. Coordinated services funds will provide an estimated 23,163 trips for seniors, adults with disabilities, and other vulnerable residents, and support the operation of First Call, the county's information and assistance line, which connects residents to transportation and transit services. A 20% in-kind match is required for this project. This requirement will be met by using in-kind contributions of $54,131 provided through Douglas County staff time and $179,963 in additional services provided by developmental pathways and other grant funds. The combined total grant request is $1,170,468. Based on initial letters of intent obtained from our subgrantee providers, coordinated service funds will be allocated as follows. $277,200 to Aging Resources of Douglas County, $129,600 to Castle Rock Senior Center, $86,250 to Continuum of Colorado, $36,000 to Lyft, $10,800 to Metro Taxi, $15,000 to the Rock Church, $75,000 to the Rescue, $75,000 to the First Call Center, and $15,000 to Innovative Projects. Again, the total estimated trips provided will be 23,163. A little bit of background. Douglas County has historically received FTA 5310 funds from the Colorado Department of Transportation and received DRCOG HST funds for the first time this year in 2020. Beginning in January of 2021, FTA 5310 funds will be administered locally by DRCOG. In an effort to reduce administrative burden, DRCOG has issued a combined request of proposals for both 5310 and HST funds. The program year for both funds has been modified to 18 months from January 2021 through June of 2022. The staff recommendation that the 2021-2022 DRCOG 5310 and Human Service Transportation Mobility Management application in the amount of $1,170,468, which includes $936,374 in requested grant funds and requires an in-kind match of $54,131 from county staff time and $179,963 from partner contributions, be approved by the Board of County Commissioners as it complies with all federal, state, and county approval standards and policies. This concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Rand. Questions for Rand?
Hello, Rand. This is Commissioner Thomas. You always do a great job leveraging these DRCOG dollars to help our citizens. And I always struggle to figure out the part where it says that the contribution of partners and other grant sources is $179,963. And so at first I thought it was the chart, but that's the chart of how the trips are going to be allocated. So can you help me remind me where the $179,000 sum is coming from, please?
Yes, ma'am. So Developmental Pathways provides a number of transportation trips to Douglas County residents that go above and beyond the amount of money that we are able to allocate to them through the application process. And so Developmental Pathways allows us to use those additional trips as part of a match that is required by DRCOG. So their additional support and services to our residents that comes from other funding sources, we can leverage that and use that to meet our grant match requirements.
Okay, thank you for explaining that so I could understand it. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Layden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Rand, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I would just echo those sentiments that you always do such a wonderful job of coordinating and finding a way to reach vulnerable populations and key demographics with limited dollars. So just wanted to thank you for that. This is a wonderful opportunity to provide some much needed transportation solutions to the vulnerable and to our seniors. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We have great partners who enable us to do amazing things.
Rand, thank you. Great presentation, great information in our packet. And thank you for bringing that information forward about developmental pathways. We know they receive a mill levy, a large part of the mill levy that Douglas County provides to them through the commissioner's decision, but interesting to see how that is returned back to the community. So Rand, I don't think you are the one who provides these 23,000 trips. Can you just give us a little background? Who provides those? Is that a government funded? Is that a government operation that provides those services?
No, sir. So we work with partner agencies who are the experts in providing transportation across our community. This particular grant, let me count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There'll be seven different providers that will provide these trips to folks. We will, after the grant award is announced, we will allocate those funds to as many as 7, maybe a few more based on the innovative projects providers who will then provide those direct services to our residents.
Thank you, sir. So we know those are tax dollars. Tax dollars only come from one individual. It's called the taxpayer, but they are returned back to our community and then put back into the private industry for the large part. So Rand, thank you so much for that explanation.
Thank you.
All right. No further questions. I'll move to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board regarding this program, item 4C on our agenda? Seeing no one in our physical audience. Ms. Stunning, do we have anyone on the phone?
Thank you, Commissioner Partridge. We have no hands raised.
And I don't believe we received any email correspondence. Head shaking no. So this time I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for any further questions, discussion, and or motion. And Commissioner Layden, feel free to provide a motion.
Sure, I did the last one. I'm happy to do another one. I will make a motion to approve the 2021-2022 Denver Regional Council of Governments 5310 and Human Service Transportation Mobility Management application.
I'll second that motion, and I did 2 in a row, so I thought you could do 2 in a row.
All righty.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden, Commissioner Thomas. We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, state aye.
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 Aye, and the motion passes. Thank you, Rand, for bringing this forward. That concludes all items under number 4. And County Manager to the board, any further business?
No, Mr. Chair, no further business. Happy to answer any questions the board might have on the County Manager report.
If there's no questions for the County Manager, the County Manager's report was enclosed in our documents. At this time, I'll ask if there's any commissioner comments. And Commissioner Layden, any comments?
None for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes, I would just like to state that I was at a rally over the weekend supporting law enforcement, and it was a very moving event. There were a lot of law enforcement officers there and a lot of citizens supporting the law enforcement we have in our community. So I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the citizens who were there to thank the law enforcement who do such a great job. Douglas County has been rated the healthiest county in the country and the nation. And there were 82 different metrics that were measured when it was decided that Douglas County was the healthiest county in the nation. And one of those metrics was based on crime and law enforcement. And so those men and women help us maintain our excellent lifestyle here. So I would just like to thank each and every one of them and their families for what they do for us. Thank you, Commissioner Partridge and Commissioner Layden.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas, and I know that is a board felt appreciation. I would like to comment, we had our call with the Douglas County leadership with Tri-County Health Department today because it's always on our minds what's going on with COVID. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't think about it multiple times a day. And even though we do hear there's been a few increase of positive tests, as Dr. Douglas of Tri-County Health reported, that Douglas County continues to be one of the leaders in the state for low numbers. So even though we've had a few increases in actually numbers, we're still many times in single digits. We may have bumped up to that on Saturday, I believe, but we're still in single digits per day. The important thing of that is we hear this around the country. is some of the things we don't hear, and Dr. Douglas pointed that out today. Many times you don't hear that the severity of those cases is one of the key things you look at. So we look at how many hospitalizations have we had. The last hospitalization we had was in June 11th. We had 2 hospitalizations regarding to COVID. That's the last time we've had anybody hospitalized. That tells you about severity. Another important fact is out of the positive tests we have, you look at, out of the numbers of tests that you provide or are performed each day, you look at the positive cases. That rate has also stayed very low. And those 2 metrics are what we often look at, and we put that forward. So we want to give a big thank you to the residents, the businesses, and employees in Douglas County for doing everything they can. Commissioner Thomas stated it very well. As we know, the healthiest county in the country through our residents' efforts puts us on a good base to start with, and you've continued to do a great job to keep our numbers low. So we appreciate all that everyone is doing, and we wish you blessings and good health. That concludes our agenda for our business meeting. We will adjourn, and so we are adjourned our business meeting, and even it's past 2:30 for the start time of our public hearing and land use hearing. We will take about a 5-minute recess and reconvene somewhere around 2:40 for our land use and public hearing. Thank you, everyone.